Welcome to the Agent State. My name is Karan I'm here with my co-host Fed, and I'm very happy to introduce our two guests for today. Akshit, co-founder of Epoch Protocol, and RG, core contributor at Reppo. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's just jump into it. Let's start with who you guys are, what you guys are working on, and what you guys find interesting about the space right now. RG, do you want to kick things off?
Yeah, sure thing. I'm RG. I used to work at Protocol Labs scaling Filecoin for a couple of years. And specifically within Filecoin, I was leveraging AI to help, storage providers help figure out, how can they deal with incentives abuse. So, if you know much about Filecoin, there's a lot of, incentives involved to onboard data. And just like any ecosystem, when there are incentives, there are incentives to abuse those incentives. We were leveraging kind of AI and machine learning to predict which data onboarders are kind of bad actors and which storage providers might be bad actors. And from there, I just realized that this can be a separate thing by itself. At the time, agents was not really like a big thing. This is like 2024, Jan 2024. We started out as building out, when we started Reppo, we were actually building out like a risk and reputation protocol for DPINs. And we quickly realized that that market was like a little small, and I can dive into later why. But that's been my journey and my background. So we spun out of Protocol Labs. Protocol Labs is technically a co-founder in Reppo. It's been an awesome journey since.
Nice. Akshit,
Awesome.
you wanna go from there?
Yep. So I'm Akshit. I also go by AK to some of my friends, the Eastern friends and Western friends out there. Yeah. And I started my journey in crypto back in 2018 with AI itself. So my first company was an edtech AI company. I was working in machine learning and deep learning with that product. It was pre-ChatGPT, pre-AI era in 2018. I was building our own NLP algorithm. Had to shut down that company due to COVID. Started second Web3 company called Orange Wallet, which was a mobile wallet. Scale it up. Then later on, it got acquired by decentralized exchange. And now I'm working on Epoch Protocol, which is a universal coordination layer for solvers and agents out there, where we're coordinating between multiple intent solvers, agents, and taking users from any state in Web3 to any other state in Web3 in all seamless transaction in a single transaction, completing like cross-chain, cross-abstraction, and all account abstraction things as well. So yeah, my journey has been so far really ups and downs for sure.
Yeah, super interesting. So I guess to to set a baseline, like maybe we can talk about where you guys see the crypto AI space right now. Obviously you guys have a lot of experience like seeing the ups and downs of the space, but I guess to set a baseline of there are maybe like 4 or 5 different ways the two industries interact. Maybe we can start with how each of your projects touch on those various spaces, and how you're kind of maybe touching different parts of the stack. Actually, do you want to start with that one?
Yep. So firstly, for where this industry is heading on to. So the moment when I started like step foot in the Web3, it was super early. Not a lot of people in Web3. Everyone like there were only 2 or 3 bigger chain outside. That's it, like Polygon, Ethereum, and mainnet mostly. And then that was all familiar in this Indian ecosystem. And then other chain keep on building and then keep on coming. It was web like the transition where people were just trying to understand what Web3 is, what decentralized is, decentralization is, what is decentralized storage, hosting, and every sort of things. So I believe that every trend that starts, every technical trend that start, follows a curve where it's all bottom in the really start of the years. So it was that time in 2017, 2018, 2019. And then the first boom happened with NFT and DeFi and all sort of things, where people started getting into crypto all for finance. That's it. Nothing apart from finance, only for making money, quick trades through either through NFTs or from yield or anything like that. Then right now it's at the curve where it's getting like it's at the intersection of the real world use case, which is also required out there. People can also understand, and what Web3 is also capable of. So it's also decentralization, permissionless governance, and all sort of things. Now it's all intersecting with AI use cases, so real world use cases with RW and all sort of things. So even the layman can start using Web3 and can start understanding without depending or understanding what the core background of how a blockchain works, how a transaction happens, all sort of things. The normal user doesn't have to know all this stuff right now. They can just go to any dApp. They can understand basic finances, and then this AI thing that's coming into Web3 is also simplifying a lot of things for the users. So it's moving for the mass adoption, according to me, right now. It started with the developer adoption first, and now it's moving for the mass adoption with the consumer facing adoption and the retail facing adoption. That's where I think that the industry is going to. What was the next question that you asked? Sorry.
Yeah, like how does, what you're doing, or like what part of the stack does, what Epoch Protocol is doing, and like maybe we can just talk about like kind of your interests and what you're kind of like focused on, but like what part of the stack is it touching in terms of crypto and AI and how they intersect, and there's many different use cases and like how they
Yep.
interact, but like
So
what
yeah.
kind of part of the stack are you guys focused on?
Yep. So Epoch Protocol works in the infrastructure layer for everything that's going out in Web3. Whether it's for non-AI stuff or AI stuff, we are building this API and SDK with Epoch Protocol, which can take users from any state to any state in Web3. So, for example, if user have their funds on any exchange like Optimism and some stable coins, and they want to invest their funds on some other chain, for example, Polygon or Solana, in some betting marketplaces, prediction market, games, anything. Right now, they have to go through multiple steps like swap, bridge, then again interacting with the DeFi protocol, dApp protocol, smart contracts, and all sort of things. We simplify all these things with our coordination layer. So where we coordinate and find an optimized route for users to go from state A to state B, much like Google Maps, where you point like, okay, I'm at this bridge, Brooklyn Bridge, and I want to go to city center, NYC. How do I reach there? So it will go out and find the all route, like go through all the bridges, solvers, swaps, taps, and everything, and get you to the right place. Now, how it plugs into AI as well is that there are two kind of AI models and agents out there right now. One is the super advanced one, which goes out and track and explore all the DeFi activities, all the on-chain and off-chain activities, and find the best results for you. For example, if you asked an AI agent to find the best yield providing asset across 5 different chains, this advanced AI model will go out and find the best yield providing asset, for example, XYZ coin on Z chain, right? Now, how do you reach from your current wallet position to this position where you have interacted with the smart contract of this XYZ protocol on that chain, have staked this asset? That's where Epoch comes in. So AI agent just need to understand and inference this user request, maybe gather the data on their own by the on-chain or the off-chain analytics, and give us this intent that user starting from X coin on Y chain and then needs an open position on Y protocol on XYZ chain. Epoch handle the rest of the stuff where we can go out and build the whole route for the users and for the wallets that this AI agents are using. They just need to use that call data, do a signature, and then we carry forward all the user onboarding and everything over there. The second part, which are basic AI agent, which only works on chat, which can only do like interpretations, and that's it. Uh, those can directly give us the intent, and we have the whole network where we can also optimize for user transaction. For example, AI agents can directly give us an intent, find me the best yield providing asset across XYZ chains, and we'll go out and find the best yield providing assets. Plus, we'll also give you the RFQ and the route and everything. So you just need to call our API, get the RFQs, present it to the user base. If users respond yes, then you can just use a call data and then onboard user to that platform. It's that easy. So that's how we are leveraging between the infrastructure layer for the DeFi apps, wallets out there, and also with AI agents.
I have a million questions there, but
Yeah.
I'll keep them for after. I'm curious to hear also what RG is working on. And yeah, Karan, after we ask RG, we can go down the rabbit hole of like Web3 intents,
Yeah.
autonomous agents. We have a bunch of things we can talk
Yeah.
about there.
Yeah, definitely. I think like both of you guys are working on like intents and intent solvers, and so I think there's a lot to go into there. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
RG, do you
Yep.
want to maybe kind of introduce what you guys are doing, and then we can get into like the details.
Sure thing, yeah. So, when I think of the crypto into AI space, I broadly break it down into, yeah, like two chunks. So, like, there's a developer side of the house, and then there's the user side of the house. I think for the developers, intents and just having kind of more frictionless experiences, and is kind of really like what makes kind of crypto into AI interesting, because like, well, that's what makes AI interesting to developers, right? I mean, the reason why from my perspective, AI is interesting, if because it basically takes off like this operational tasks and work. So I think so from the developer perspective, it's literally just like bringing AI to crypto. We're not there where we're talking about, like, the developer doesn't care about verifiability, right? The developer doesn't care about like a lot of these like um, yeah, like novel unlocks. And then there's the user side, which you have the verifiable pieces, and making sure that the output or the outcome that you're consuming is right. So yeah, I think that's how I think about it. I still believe that the main value add of crypto in the world of AI is incentives. When we started out Reppo, we were building this incentive layer for AI developers to build risk and reputation models. The ambition was to build a decentralized Moody's or S&P 500. And if you think about it, it's still undisrupted. Those I think it's Moody's, S&P 500, and there's one more big player. I think Flitch Ratings. They have combined revenue of $20 billion a year. And I think what we realize is that you have to break the developers stack, well, developers into like three chunks, or at least that's how I do it. So you have the top of the top developers, right, who are really smart. They are going to go work at the top AI labs, right? They're not screwing around like farming for crypto tokens or incentives. Or there's also the top ones are just going to contribute for free on Hugging Face or open source. Like, they're not really interested unless like they're earning like a Bitcoin a day to do something for tokens. Then you have this middle layer, which are people kind of not good enough to build specialized AI models using specialized data, but also not good enough to or but also not like motivated enough that they would spend their weekend learning a new thing from scratch. And then you have like the very bottom, sort of like not the bottom, but say like like below that, where you have the vibe coders, people who are like, wow, I have these new powers now, what can I do with it? And for the longest time, I think the mistake we did initially was we were targeting the middle, as and thinking that we can get to the top. But the reality is, it's very, very hard to crack that. I mean, AI, Meta, and Google are like already fighting for those top people, and to expect that these people will come to our decentralized AI modeling layer and try to like build specialized models is like sort of living in like like a dream. So I think what we realize is that, okay, what we really need to do is define that user base, right? And I think that's what we have done at Reppo. Our user kind of buckets that we define it are AI agents as well as vibe coders. And so, so what we're building now is a platform where vibe coders and AI agents can discover and access data infra capital on demand. So data and infra is kind of where intents come in. It's nothing too fancy. We're using a Noma stack to build this middleware layer, so that agents don't really have to care about plugging into an L1 or working with a specific provider. All they have to say is like, hey, I'm looking for like NVIDIA H100s for the next 3 months. This is my budget, find me that. And discoverability is a big challenge. And then similarly, like from a data perspective, right now, Dharmesh from Agent.ai wrote about this last in April, mid-April, how discoverability and consumability is a big challenge for MCPs, because everyone has a server, but There's just like one client sometimes. So yeah, that's a big challenge. So that's really what we're solving from a data and infra perspective. It's called Reppo.exchange. And the goal there is, yeah, anyone can come in, human AI, eventually physical AI, and they can just say, hey, in plain English and natural language, they can say, this is what I want. And they can essentially discover that and consume that. And then finally, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I do have a lot of questions here.
Yeah.
Is this similar? So it's a marketplace for GPUs or something different?
So it is a marketplace in the sense that, but we're not basically building like this. We're like a layer abstracted from the P2P marketplace. So when you think of a marketplace, like it will be like Spheron or like, Hyperbolic, like that's what they're doing. They're bringing GPU providers, and then they're bringing people who basically, yeah, want it, but it's still very much like you have to come to Hyperbolic or you have to come to Spheron, right, to consume it. What we're building is this layer on top, which is a network of solver nodes. So you here, Fed, can be running a solver node, which is optimized to take in certain requests. So let's say, you are saying that, hey, I have really good relationships with people who have H100s. And I can take in, you're basically acting as this decentralized middleman. Instead of, the person who wants the H100s, them having to go to like explore 10 different options and like discover like what's the best price out there, they can basically come to Reppo, which acts as this like abstraction layer. And when they put in a request, they don't even know like it's going to go to your solver node. It might go to current solver node. Yeah. So that's kind of
Okay,
like
that's super awesome.
yeah.
It kind of like let me understand if I read this correctly, but it's almost like open router routing to OpenAI, Anthropic, and so you're like this router for the PIN services. So Spheron, you mentioned Hyperbolic, there's a million. Jensen, Akash, Aether, there's like they're popping up like mushrooms now. And yeah, and interestingly, I've seen. I was looking at their ARR. They're crazy, but nobody really share their ARR in a public because they're decentralized. I mean, they're in the crypto space, but their data is proprietary and their own data is private. So and by the way, I'm friendly with all of them, so I don't want to throw them under the bus. But a lot of the data that they're sharing, it's not on chain, so there's no verifiability on that. I wonder from your side, if you being decentralized, if you actually can talk about eventually on seeing the actual data of how many users are using these, because yeah, there's and this comes from I'm plugging both worlds, the Web3 and the AI, and also in the cross of Web3 and AI. And what I mean for both, I mean with the AI NYC event, we're only AI. So I see the people only from the AI angle. And conference that I go, they're all AI. And then I'm in the Web3 space with all the Web3 companies, etc. And there's like a lot of lack of trust, especially from the AI people to crypto, and lack of reputation. Unfortunately, we're in, with all the scams now. It's very we have a harder time to convince that AI and crypto are meant to work together, but it takes the time. So I think it would be very interesting to, and this probably is a suggestion, or if you're already doing that, having public, transparent data on what users are using. Like OpenRouter does a really good job in sharing how many tokens, how much dollars are spent at each type of model. And so they have like millions of tokens used, and they shared that at the AI engineering conference. And it's interesting because you can start like getting some insight. You can see the different waves of LLM coming up, Gemini 2.5 Pro, when come up, quickly become the top used one. Before that, Sonnet 3.7 was the most used one. And then DeepSeek, there was a moment that was free, so everyone was using that. So, and I think could be very valuable to know where the market goes. And that could be a really good indication to know, okay, we're moving from the hyperscaler, Scale AI, OpenAI, etc., using their own private data center, to now users are actually using the pin for real. So that could be really interesting, I think.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack there, right? So I think you identified this correctly. It is an orchestration framework that we're building, and an orchestration network, really. And I think what you picked on is actually really, really interesting. So we've actually had clients who've told us that they're willing to pay for analytics around what people want, not necessarily what
yeah,
is satisfied, right? So we call them RFDs, so request for data, request for infra, RFI, RFDs. And yeah, exactly what you said. Right now, we live in a world, from my perspective, and I'm a bit scarred from my time at Filecoin, where it's a supply intensive world, right? You have a lot of supply, even though it might not look like it, at least in the data storage for sure. I can say that with confidence. Maybe not in compute. But I think the demand was lacking, definitely in the decentralized storage world, right? And so I think what we realized, okay, it's instead of like having the instead of just having like suppliers compete with each other, they should compete with each other, to satisfy demand, right? So what we really mean by that is, let's say someone says that, hey, I want the weather data for the last 3 months in New York, near Central Park, like they define the block, and they want really granular data. Now, this data can be satisfied by a deepen network, by like some enterprise, maybe Waymo or something. This can be satisfied maybe like through a synthetic data set in an LLM. And the way we really think about it is that, all these suppliers should be competing to figure out which supplier, which like in provider can best satisfy this request, right? Eventually, that's how we kind of lead to this convergence where you can say like, okay, whether XM as a deepen network is really good at like satisfying this type of data requests versus like another like deepin or another like enterprise, like, or you can say like, oh, like Google Maps or Waymo is really good at identifying heat maps, right? Something like that. And I think that's the world we're trying to move to. So yes, I think that's the intention, and we are very much targeting beyond Web3. So the goal is just to make this like Google search like experience for any developer in the world. And the thesis is that there's going to be more independent developers than there are going to be like, I mean, there's always going to be enterprises, but the world that we're living right now is like enterprise, calls and other enterprises like, hey, like, under the table deals. And yeah, I think I agree with you, like, like not to just throw anyone under the bus, but there are cases where you have Web3 protocols who are just buying GPUs, buying hardware, selling it again, and like claiming it is decentralized. It's not their fault. Like there is no decentralized demand yet. But I think if we want to build towards a future where we say like, hey, let the way crypto into AI becomes useful is you actually use intents and all these things where like literally if one of you can go and say, hey, I'm looking for this data, I'm looking for this infra, I don't care about L1, which provider, blah blah blah, just give it to me. That's where I think like incentives, it's really about incentives. Like a solver is incentivized to just do the discovery work.
Yep.
Set up their MCP server, make it consumable for you, and I think that's sort of like the beauty that I see.
Pretty much you end up working as an arbitrage between all these different providers, and in theory the price should converge to the same price everywhere. So it kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
please.
I had a follow-up question with that actually. So what Reppo is doing and what Epoch is doing is essentially orchestration. Epoch is doing orchestration across DeFi only, and Reppo is doing orchestration across infrastructure right now for deepens right now, right? So one of the major thing that we did a lot of brainstorming over there is how do we incentivize solvers to come in, and how do we manage the slashing so that whenever a solver comes in and say that I'll provide you X rate for a bridge or swap, and if it doesn't provide that rate and the transaction has already gone through, that user has already signed the transaction, how do we slash that solver so it's like penalized, and how does it incentives aligns with the whole network, right? How does that happen with Repo right now? Like, since it's all based on physical infrastructure, is it all real-time transaction that happens that I place a request, then you go out and find the RFQs with the multiple providers, get me the GPUs or CPUs, and then if someone is not able to provide certain amount of CPUs or quantities of GPUs, what happens over there? How do you depenalize them? Penalize them? Sorry.
Yeah, that's a great question. So our approach is so two-part answer. One is the solver nodes are setting themselves are essentially setting themselves up in advance to satisfy certain types of intents. So there'll be a solver node which will say like, hey,
RG, you're breaking for me. I don't know if it's
Yep,
for
for me as well.
everyone, but
Yes.
you've been breaking a little bit, but now it's been a little bit more
oh sorry,
like cutting off completely.
oh my bad.
Maybe we can turn the camera off.
Okay, I can try. Sorry about that.
Oh, we lost
Can
him.
you hear us?
Is it better now,
Yeah.
or is it better now?
Yeah, I guess we can continue talking for now, and then when he's
Okay.
back.
Oh, I'm well.
Yeah, actually, we can go to the
Yeah.
question that I had for you. I
Yeah.
have a million
Yeah.
questions for
Yeah.
both of you, and I like that you stated both projects are orchestrator because
Yep.
it makes sense. One is orchestrating infra for the pin. The other one is orchestrating liquidity, I guess, or
Yes.
blockchain data. Yeah.
Yep.
I say
Yep.
liquidity, but can be NFT. So that's, I don't know if you consider that
DeFi.
liquidity. So
Whole
that's
DeFi.
more
Yeah.
all DeFi. Okay. And
I would
yeah,
say
can you
we
talk
are
a bit
orchestrating across
about the
DeFi. Yeah. Yeah.
Web3 intents? Yeah, if you can talk a bit
Yeah.
about
So
the
Web3 intents. Web3
intents
intents.
for and the solver.
Yeah. So Web3 intents are pretty simple as compared to the normal AI intents. So for example, let's say you are a staking provider, staking dApp, who's only live on a single chain. For example, let's just take an example of Optimism chain, right? And then you can only serve users on your own chain, which chain you are live on, like Optimism. That's it, right? And that's also, let's say you only support 2 or 3 different coins. That's it, nothing apart from stable coins or from Ethereum, these 2 3 coins that you can support. Now let's say you want to, like, Karan comes on board and says that I only hold funds on Polygon chain. How do I actually interact with your protocol? There's no way for him to directly interact with your protocol. He'll have to go through the native bridge or a cross or everclear, something like that, to bridge his funds, then again go to 1inch or Uniswap to swap it in order to interact with your protocol. Now there's a gap, the user experience gap, when Karan found out about your dApp on Optimism chain, and he has to take 4 steps to actually go and put his money into your dApp. So that's the user experience flaw in the system. So that's where we are targeting. So you can directly integrate our APIs and have a simple button like onboard via any chain. If clicking on that, Karan can directly see all the assets that he holds on all the different chains. Select chain and token from which he wants to onboard to your dApp. That's it. And then we can give you all the call data. You just need to ask Karan for a single signature, which can be bundled up with your own smart contract call together. For example, the staking function calling your own dApp smart contract. All things can be bundled up, and you can onboard Karan in a single step, in a single signature from any chain, any wallet. That goes for dApp as well. And for the wallet side, it gives more opportunity for discoverability for wallet builders. So wallet doesn't have to go out and integrate into multiple swap for multiple chains or multiple bridge options or multiple DeFi apps as well. They can just integrate our API and then just ask our API, find me the yield providing as like best yield providing solution for XYZ tokens on any chain. And then we can give them the call data, they can give it back to users, and then they can just call it, and they have the whole user experience sorted out for the users.
Gotcha. And what are you using as a infrastructure? Do you build your own solver? How do you, for example, let's say I ask Epoch, I want to find the best yield for stablecoins. By the way, this is like
Yep.
a recent, kind of like one of the recent trend is like AI for stablecoins. There's so many AI
Yep.
agents for stablecoins. There's
Yeah.
so many investors that are looking to throw money at that. So
Yep.
just for you, like you can put hashtag stablecoins, agents
Yeah.
in your pitch. But
Yeah.
let's say that I have USDT on Polygon, and then I have USDC on Base, and I want to find the best yield. Can you talk about the tech underneath and how you do the transaction between the
Yep.
cross chain, and then also questions about, does the agent have its own wallet? Are you using smart wallet? And yeah, if you can go into the details of that, as much as
Yes.
public knowledge you
Yes,
can
yes,
share.
yes. Everything is public knowledge. I'll share. So yeah, what happens? So user starts from an intent. So they can create this intent in much more restricted manner if they want. So let's say in your example, you only want to work with stable coins. You can specify which stable coins you want to work and you want to find the best yield for. For example, USDT, USDC, and DAI. Only these three. You can also specify which chain you prefer. So let's say you only want to work with three chain, like all layer twos, bigger layer twos, like Arbitrum, Optimism, and Polygon. That's it. So you can also specify that in intent. So you can be completely open, like go out and use this three stablecoin. I just want to put money in this three stablecoins. I'm open to all the chains and I'm open to all the protocols itself. So you can also restrict which protocols you want to go and do the RFQ from. Based on this intent goes to a server. Now the servers have this three different modules. One is Hyperion, which goes out and look for on-chain, off-chain condition, looks out for all the data, RFQ, any time-based condition that you also put. So in the intent, you can also specify that I want to stake this only when Ethereum price goes below $2,000. If Ethereum price is always above $2,000, I don't want to do this transaction at all. So find me the best RFQ and also execute that once the Ethereum price is below that, right?
Yep.
So that's first module, Hyperion. Second one is Orchestrator, which goes out, does all the RFQs for all the protocols that you might have selected, or if you're completely open, then all the protocols that we've already integrated. For example, it will go out to all the liquid staking, lending, borrowing, yield providing, staking, all this kind of protocols on all these different chains. Find the best RFQ, like which asset is giving what RFQ and all sort of things. Find the best yield providing assets from whatever chain that is out there. Now it will do a backtracking algorithm. So starting from where user funds sits. So example, you had your starting position from USDT on Polygon, and the orchestrator found out that you are getting the best yield on USDT on Arbitrum chain, which is under your restricted conditions as itself, right? Now we'll go out and do the RFQ with multiple solvers. So we have multiple solvers under the board, which is the third module, which goes out and integrates solvers, which is a completely pluggable thing. So you can, every node runner can plug as many solvers, bring their own solvers. We have our own solvers. We work with other solvers as well, like across Li-Fi for swaps, 1inch Uniswap, and all this other cow swap protocols as well. Plus, we have solvers for staking, restaking, lending, borrowing, all these dApps out there who can go out and do transactions on your behalf. Plus, it's really easy to plug new solvers into the system. So you can create your own solver, provide better rate than existing solvers, and you can get into the network. We have also plugged in other networks out there like Anuma, who are also a solver marketplace, solver network. So we also put this whole intent as an RFQ on the Anuma network itself to find the best route for every smaller sub intent itself. So example, user had to do from USDC on Polygon to XYZ chain, they need to do a bridge. So bridge becomes a sub intent of this bigger intent. Then there can be that user might need to do a swap, then call a smart contract. This can be the whole route, which has three different sub intent. The another route can be directly using a solver's liquidity to front it on Optimism chain and directly just use it use with a smart contract. So that can be another route. There can be like yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
actually, and yeah, going into the from the UX perspective, because I think the tech perspective is yeah, so the main issue I think in the Web3 space right now is that users need to know a lot of these things. Like you need to know, like you need to go on MetaMask, sign every bridge. You need to know what is like what are all the blockchains. You need to know what's the address, what is like gas. You need to know so many different things as a base knowledge. On top of that, you need to manually like click and accept, sign. Like every change is like a sign that you can move the ERC20, sign that you can do this,
Yep.
then a swap, then put gas.
Yep.
Then you
Yep.
need to swap and put gas because you don't have enough gas to do that. So from
Yep.
the UX perspective, let's say I'm the user. Do I put my USDT somewhere, or I keep my USDT in both Polygon and Arbitrum, and then I sign something, and then Epoch take care of like the transaction. So what's the process? And I'd
Yep.
be curious also more from the UX perspective, but then we can go down into the rabbit hole of like what ABI do you write to do all of this, and what kind of like infra do you use?
Yep. So from the user perspective, user just need to hold their own normal wallet, UA wallet that they usually use. We deploy a smart wallet for you. Although with the
Mm-hmm.
newer ERC update, it will be able to migrate UA wallet to a smart wallet itself. So with that, it will be much easier. That's it. And user can hold funds in whatever coin, whatever chain that they might want. We always ask the starting position in the intent where the user is starting their whole transaction from, and the end state can be open, or you can define as a protocol or as a dApp or as a wallet or as an AI agent. You can define the end state for the users, right? So user just need to sign a single transaction on, let's say you hold your money on Polygon and USDC. You just sign a transaction where you wanted to put $10,000 USDC onto the yield, like staking, right? So you just sign a transaction for 10,000 USDC on Polygon chain. That's it. Then all the other things are handled by our solvers. That's it. So all this security risk is taken by us and the solvers. So solvers front all the liquidity. They'll do all this transaction in the backend. They'll do all this swaps, bridges for you. They'll get you the wrapped USDC on Aave or whatever the end position is, and then only they'll also give us they give us a hash proof that they have done all these things, and they've got the wrapped USDC with them, and then only your funds are released from the smart contract, so that your funds are always
Mm-hmm.
secure. If anything fucks up into the whole chaining of the route or the transaction route, everything, it's all taken care by us or the solvers. That's it. So your user funds are always secure, and you directly get the last position, the wrapped USDT or USDC in your wallet, in the same wallet.
Gotcha. It's and they use Privy or any of the smart wallet, or Epoch has its own like a smart wallet.
Yeah. So we work with every existing smart wallet out there. By default, we deploy a safe wallet because we love the team and
Yep,
we
yep.
love their tech as well. So that's why we use safe right now. But it's completely up to the users. We can support Privy, we can support Bioeconomy, we can support any other smart wallet as well.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Makes sense. And so
And
technically the wallet is on the chain. It's not on so the agent doesn't own the wallet. The wallet is still the users owning the wallet.
It depends on what kind of signing mechanism the dApp who's integrating our API is using. So if it's a agent who has their own wallet, their own private key, they can use and they can deploy a safe wallet by themselves, and they can use that one, the agent wallet, to do all this transaction, and signing can be handled by the agents.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the user wallet, EOA wallet, which is the MetaMask wallet, we deploy a safe wallet for them. Or if they already have a safe wallet with them, they can directly use that one for all the signing and everything out there. And with the I guess it's ERC 7579 with which we'll be able to migrate EOA to smart wallet as well. Upgrade
Mm-hmm.
EOA to smart wallet. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. I want to, Karen, I saw you have a question. In case if you don't, I'll keep going.
yeah, no, I was just gonna ask RG, like, in terms of like the architecture, in terms of how Reppo works. Maybe you can go into it a little bit as well. Is it quite similar, or how? Yeah, yeah. Just like how does it work?
Yeah. Sorry about the thing. So is my voice clear now? Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so I think in terms of how the solver network works for the data for the Repo.exchange, the solvers set themselves up in advance to satisfy certain intents. And it's a little different than transactions, because we can afford to like DeFi transactions, because we can afford to not satisfy them, right? Where we can say, like, someone says that, hey, I want this data set, and if that data set doesn't exist, that RFD or request for data will sit there for a bit, and we're not guaranteeing that this request will be kind of confirmed or will be fulfilled. And I think that's something that's like a big differentiator. because we can monetize the RFD analytics itself. So regardless of like if a solver is picking up the request for data or the request for infra, just that incoming flow is like very interesting and interesting data itself. And eventually our goal is to put that into an API and sell that as well as like the labs. And but yeah, so in terms of how the solver architecture works, you as a solver can set up, you can say like, hey, I'm going to satisfy synthetic data requests on the Reppo network. And so that might mean that you basically plugged in into like all the large LLMs, and now you're essentially listening for incoming RFDs. And that's how it would work. Or you can say like, hey, I am a solver and I specialize in health data, specifically like not just like providing you the data, but also computing that data into inside a TEE, because that's how you've set up your solver, and you can basically do that computation for someone who's making a request, right? So I think those are the kind of ways in which the solver network works. And we don't need like a lot, right? We did a solver node sale just to bootstrap the initial set of solvers. So we sold about like 450 plus 456 nodes so far. And the last point I want to mention is each provider can run their own node as well, their own solver node. So this means that Filecoin storage provider right now runs a Filecoin node, but they can also run a Reppo node where they can listen to these independent retail demand, so to say, for the data that they're storing, and then they can also work on the Filecoin network to get more enterprise demand. And so really, I think the crux of Reppo.exchange specifically, is to focus on that retail demand, and try to scale that, because that's our kind of thesis. We believe that demand is going to move more from enterprise to retail as we have more and more independent developers, more and more individual one-person $1 billion businesses. They won't necessarily need to like deal with enterprise. So yeah, that's sort of like the.
Very cool. Yeah, Fed, do you want to go into your next question?
Yeah, it's kind of another consecutor from RG, but I think it's like it embraced this AI Web3 space we're now. And I'd be curious to hear from you guys. So what's the state today of AI and Web3, AI agents and Web3? What's missing for AI agents to be completely autonomous and have their own wallet, and being able, I guess for RG, being able to purchase their own hardware if they need to, and run transactions. So what's missing today to get to the stage at which agents would be autonomous? And also, do you think we'll get there? How far are we from there? And could be nice to get like a kind of like a state of what we are today, and then progressively where we're going, and what do you think is missing? Yeah. Actually, you're omit.
Yeah, sorry. I believe one of the biggest thing that's missing, that I feel missing in the AIX Web3 space, is that how do I actually trust an agent on behalf of my funds? So trustable, verifiable execution, or maybe just, are they finding the best position for me? Are they interacting with the right smart contract? Because there are few protocols that I literally don't want to interact to, because I think that they are going to go down. If I have their coins, it's going to go down. There are many of this projects out there. So how do we restrict this agents who are making decision on my behalf of my money, to not interact with those protocols? But also, how do I actually trust? Can I actually trust them or not? That's one of the biggest fear, according to me, right now. Happy to hear other thoughts as well, Raghav.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. That's the main challenge. And I think that's been that's actually we've realized the biggest value add of the solver network that we're building, because you can abstract this trust and reputation layer, so to say, and say that, okay, I don't need to trust the provider itself, because when you're trusting a provider, you're trusting their branding, or a lot of like that bias comes in. and you're trusting this solver network, like the solver itself, where you can know that this solver, you can see their history. And our approach is actually a three-pronged approach. So we have like a validator like network on top of the solvers. So for every 100 solvers, there's one validator, at least right now. That's how we've set it up. So that's like one. We're also requiring providers, both data providers and infra providers, to eventually stake some amount of money so that they can provide some sort of guarantees of how good they are. And then finally, it's about the competition between solvers as well, right? We're not guaranteeing that if you become a solver on the Reppo network, you will get requests. And so I think at the end of the day, it's always going to be optimistic, instead of deterministic. That's how I see it. But yeah, I think we need better and more approaches to abstract reputation and trust to another layer. And unfortunately or fortunately, that's how things have been done. In the world, we have progressed so far, right? We always abstract away this layer of trust and reputation. And the last one I want to mention is I think there's this belief in crypto into AI that if you make things verifiable, you don't need trust. And I've said this many times. I think that's kind of like what's the word? It's like a little counterintuitive. It seems right, but it's actually not right, because sure, it's verifiable, but I don't really care if I can verify that someone cheated me. I'm like, okay, cool. I now know that I got cheated, but would have been nice that I know. And then because I think then you go into okay, what are the consequences? And really, I think in the real world, it comes down to, well, if someone cheated me, I can sue them. They'll go to jail, and there's some repercussions. And I think in Web3, we don't have that. So either there already needs to exist a really strong insurance mechanism or a way for me to reimburse. Otherwise, I think verifiability is just I was at the Nexus Labs office last week. And I said it to them. I'm like, hey, verifiability is a nice thing, but it's only useful when there are consequences with it, right? So I think that's how I think about it. Trust and verification are two different concepts. And I think we have this tendency in Web3 to mix and jumble them, to say that, if everything is ZKs, everything is verifiable, we're good, we're Gucci. I'm like, no. There's way more than that. So yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. And the MCP world also, it's kind of having some problem in that as well, where we don't have registries yet. And it's so funny because all these problems seems like the replica of the same problems. Whereas the moment you start decentralizing, you start getting scam, bad actors. You start getting who do I trust, what do I use, and then we start narrowing down again using the Apple Store, using marketplaces like Amazon. It kind of centralized eventually again. And so I guess our goal in Web3 will be, how do we truly decentralize in a way that is not getting back into few players that become the gatekeeper. And I wonder I really like what you mentioned about the verifiability. Makes sense for provenance, for ID and knowing who you're talking to. But then we do need some reputation system, I think, as well. And some, maybe a middle layer that can provide some kind of safety, either slashing, insurance, or something where you have your transaction, they happen autonomously. You're familiar, you know what's your risk, and you know that if something goes bad, you pay these middle layer, maybe 5%, but you have the guarantee that if something goes wrong, your transaction is not executed. Or you know that you have some risk and you take the risk.
I mean, yeah, I think that's what it is, right? I think the TLDR is we need an equivalent of UMA protocol for agents. That's what it is. The only reason Polymarket works to the extent that it works is because I think people underestimate the usefulness of UMA protocol. Polymarket wouldn't work to the scale it works if you didn't have they have a resolution mechanism, right? Because big stakes are involved. I can come after someone and there's big stakes to game the system as well. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. So I think I don't know exactly what the version of UMA protocol for agents will look like, but I think it requires some sort of complex. Reputation doesn't just do it, right? Reputation gives you it gives you more information, just like Google reviews tells you this restaurant's better. But again, if we're talking about a lot of money, right? Sure, having a bad pizza for $5, not the end of the world. Having a bad 100K bet because an agent kind of messed it up. I think that's like different, right? So I think we just need to
Yeah, yeah.
from first principles. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like actually it's so funny. In Polymarket, there was like a dispute, if you remember, when the Venezuela election got Maduro to win, but Polymarket said that someone else won. And yeah, the kind of dispute is like a few $millions. Like, how do you even do that when you're have like a large scale? And then with agents, I believe that's a big misconception or big things that we're missing. We think about Epoch right now in the human uh, time, like mindset time, where proposals are 2 weeks. Voting on Polymarket is whenever the voting ends. So everything that happened in or election happens every 4 years. But in a world where AI runs everything, we're gonna transition from like 2 weeks to like a streaming or to like every 10 minutes or whatever the SLA will be for that. And so, yeah, I think there will be a need of like a incentive mechanism that regulate and find some kind of like a um, yeah, like an equilibrium that it works through incentives and not through someone clicking and say, okay, let's resolve these. Because
Yep.
yeah, you can have like a resolution, but they have to be really fast. So I think we're gonna end up in some kind of like I really like where you went with the UMA protocol, something on the line, and it would be interesting to see what that will look like. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just one
Uh,
thing to oh, go ahead, Akshit.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I would like to add 2 cents to what Raghav said, and also a small question for Raghav as well. When you said about the verifiability, let's say if we can verify, it does affect the reputation of agents or solvers or anyone if they have provided bad responses, a bad deal, a bad bet for anyone out there, right? So reputation is on the line. What if you just introduce a penalization mechanism on top of the reputation? So let's say it's like a fraud-proof mechanism, fraud submitting mechanism, like the chain used, right? Where a bridge happened, but it wasn't supposed to happen, but then you get penalized later on after 7 days. There's a 7 day window where anyone can go out and prove that this whole transaction was wrong. So similar that this whole solver result was wrong. Anyone can go out and prove, and based on that, their reputation gets slashed on chain. First thing is, would a solver want to affect the reputation, and it had to be affected, like changed by a huge manner depending on the value of the transaction that was fraudulent. Second thing is penalization, where all the incentives are blocked, or maybe a huge penalization is done on the staking that they have already done on your network, on Epoch network or any other network out there, which is through which they provided the bad fraudulent solutions. Because the reason why I'm coming from this is because we were also thinking about the competition and the incentivization and the penalization mechanism for solvers who are going to go live on Epoch network. That how do we prevent this? Because similar to your use case, like where infrastructure is required, 100K, 200K will be a smaller bet for the infrastructure there. Similarly, for DeFi, millions of dollars of transaction happening through solvers is a normal and is really small thing. uh, how people have done it. I've just thought of that thing, and that's why I'm proposing these two things. Like, what if you use those two things in addition? Then, what are your thoughts on that part?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think the main challenge that I've seen, again, guided by my time at Filecoin, is um, it's a like knowing what is bad, or what is like good, is a little more murky. Like when you think about what is good data, what is bad infra, good infra, a lot of it just boils down to like the consumer, right? I mean, this could be a good data set or a good infra for my use case, but not for you. Versus, I feel like in the case of and you can correct me here, but in the case of like DeFi and finance, like you can identify like what is fraud, and so I think
Yep.
that becomes a little like challenging. So yeah, really, I think that's why our
Hmm.
approach has been that what Fed was just saying. The beauty of this real time, the real time interaction is that you can have kind of this competition, though, right? I think when we try to make regulations or processes in the human kind of centric world, in the real world, Of course, time and time is one aspect, but also there's this like belief that you cannot have competition because there needs to be some regulatory authority body. And I think if you really go a little philosophical and meta, what's really changing is how competition-based regulatory frameworks come into place. I can't remember where I read about this, but I think there was some research about this at Harvard Law, where they were talking about like how do you think of like policy and like regulation from first principles when you don't have like this like enforcer enforcee relationship, and it's really about like just economic incentives. Like everyone is an economic agent, so it's really like game theory playing at its best, in real time. And it was just a fascinating piece. I'll share it once I find it after. But I think so. To come back to your question, I think that's what it comes down to: is like how do you create this intense competition between solvers to always do the right thing. And in our case, for example, the right thing would be, if someone asked for a certain data set, they provided that data set. And that's the only thing a validator can validate, that they did not try to like look into the data set or like try to unpack it. Like those are things, sure, that's like clear fraud. But again, at the end of the day, there's always a chance that the person who requested the data was like, hey, this wasn't good enough. And that's fine, because at the end of the day, you can't take that against the solver. The solver is like, hey, well, the data provider didn't have great data. And so it really like technically it should harm the reputation of the data provider. But I think our approach is still very much like it should, so the weight that we will give to quality of data, which will basically come as a feedback loop from the user, will be like less, like maybe like 20% weight, and then most of the reputation will be based on the objective behavior that we can measure, which is like, is the solver, like, what is their uptime, what is the response time, are they actively listening to requests, are they unpacking the data and like like doing something fraudulent and trying to like do something under the table. So I think that's kind of like a long answer to say that I think it's not one thing. It's like reputation plus staking plus some sort of like restaking AVS. It's just not clear right now what it would be, but I think there's no silver bullet. I think that's the answer.
I would say you already got me in when you defined that DeFi gives you statistical data have to do with numbers, so you can define what is wrong and what is not. But for agents and interpretations, translation, or data kind of perspective, in your case, it's much more like depends on human to human. So yeah, I get it why it doesn't work. The penalization and the reputation doesn't work over there.
Yeah. But I think it's like a very big opportunity that we can tap into.
Yeah, and it's some problem that the credit card company already are solving now. Like when you get a dispute, who's right, who's wrong, and at the end of the day, it's like if it's a small transaction, they usually just give you the money back because it costs less than do the research. If it's like a larger one, then you need to put lawyers and other things like that, and then so that's in the real world, the human to human interaction, so human paying somewhere. And then there's the decentralized world that solves the problem of like trust, to completely remove trust with proof of work. And so we just like create the incentive, these like shelling point that is like, you are better off playing the rules of the game than playing against, because if you play against, you're just wasting money because everyone plays by the rule. And so the network is basically follows the chain that has the highest proof of work. And because of that, if you try to do a double, like to fork, you need to have more money than whoever is running the right chain. And so the incentive is such as, you can cheat and you can basically roll back one transaction, but you better roll back a transaction that has to be way more, the value of that transaction has to be way, way higher than the cost you have to run the 51% attack. And good luck with that. So the system is made in a way that it's very stable, and even if it goes out of stability, there's like a consensus mechanism where people can still get involved and force the system to go back to the regular one. Sometime in 2017, if you remember, when there was the block, large block
Ethereum
war.
Classic, and main Ethereum fork. Are you
Yeah,
talking
I
about
mean,
that?
yes, the DAO that was a little bit more wild because the DAO hack and the classic and Ethereum fork, that actually was more like kind of like gave us a sense of like, okay, Ethereum is still super centralized because they just decided and they did it, and there was not like it wasn't a mechanism that just like Bitcoin, you need to get all the nodes to agree, and they do that with the mechanism. That was like literally, okay, let's fork it, and we followed this one, and everyone was like, okay, let's do it. And I'm actually happy that Ethereum kind of like now is showing that they seem to signal that we will never do that again. But again, in Bitcoin, that part is like embedded in the system. Proof of work, it pretty much guaranteed that because, I mean, good luck going back 20, 30 blocks with the current um, difficulty levels. And the amount of money you have to spend to roll back all those blocks is like insane. In Ethereum is cheaper, yeah. So it's there's like a trust me, bro, kind of thing to some degree. So where I'm going with that, I think that the AI, I agree with you, RG and Akshit. I think that where we're going with AI agents is someplace where it has to be a mix of completely autonomous systems that use some incentive mechanism based on finance, possibly DeFi energy, or yeah, we'll see what it is. And Sam Altman just wrote this blog post called the graceful intelligence, or the graceful. Damn it! He wrote that yesterday. I'll find the name in a second. But he mentioned that eventually the cost of inference will go down to will converge to the cost of electricity. And almost to me, that starts sounding like proof of work again, where the cost of proof of work goes to the cost of electricity. And so the stability of the network becomes like whatever in the world you run the nodes. And so I think we might start seeing some arbitrage again in the AI world where we go converging to the electricity. And yeah, I think that's kind of like where we're going. But I'd be curious also, yeah, this is like kind of a rant. So I'd be curious also to hear from you guys. What do you think about AGI? Where do you think Web3 plays in this? And yeah, do you see a world in AI becoming decentralized? What concerns you? Kind of an open question on like where we're going and what we can do from the Web3 space. And I'm happy to also narrow down the question if helps, but
Yeah.
let's see where we go with that.
Yeah, I can go. I think as things stand today, I think claiming that Web3 crypto into AI will lead AGI is definitely just like a lot of BS. I think it's just like selling like moonshine to a lot of like people. Partly because we don't even know what that even means. It's like, okay, like if someone had defined like this is like if there was like a total alignment on like what AGI meant, and then we can achieve that. I really think I think crypto into AI is really good at.
Sorry, and I interrupt you here for a second. Actually, great point.
Yeah.
What is AGI for you guys? What's the definition?
For me, I think it's very like personal, right? It's like when AI can start to do like day-to-day tasks that I do, then I think I'll consider AGI to be here, which include like walking my dog, mediating conflicts with my partner, my parents, like those kind of things. And understanding emotions in real time. Like I think when it's there and like you're like, wow, like it just did it for me. I assigned it to like like get someone.
Wait, you could trust it. You could trust it to be your mediator with your relationships.
I like that idea.
The day you can do that, the day you can trust an AI to do that, I think AGI is here. right? Because it's like, it like requires so much context, real time. Yeah, like that's what it is, right? I think that's for me like really like the measure of AGI. It's not, some
That's
like
good. I like that.
Yeah,
management.
that's the pinnacle of an example. Like, go and
Yeah.
solve my fight with my wife.
I think that's what it comes down
Yeah,
to. You see, and then
that's the
you
most.
can measure that,
Yeah,
how long it takes. Yeah,
yeah. That's the most human thing. Yeah. Out of everything else that he mentioned, like walking the dog or cooking the food, and yeah, yeah.
because I think those are things you can do. But yeah, I think that's what AGI really means to me, and I think crypto into AI really comes back to incentives. I think one thing I didn't talk about so far is like the capital coordination there that we're building, which is
Mhm.
a pretty significant part. I think data and infra are, they're quite big from the intense part. We're building this thing which we're called right now, it's called Repo.fun, and eventually just be called, we're making an app called just Reppo. And it's a way for vibe coders to essentially publish their work in real time, almost in like a video format, 30-second pitches, and people can just vote
Mhm.
for it. And when they vote, they're essentially investing in their AI apps and vibe coded projects. And we've come up with this really interesting B tokenomics adaptation. And I think that's for me like really capturing what AI into crypto can do. I think we need to acknowledge that, what crypto really empowers us is to give us this, like power of like, real time incentives, which also boils down to like real time information in real time clarity, right? Like you essentially have these like real time feedback loops, which you don't in like traditional markets. And I think the reason why DeFi took off the way it did is because partly, of course, like all the nice decentralized, like permissionless stuff. But really, I think it comes down to like, things are so like information flows at the speed of light, and with the feedback loops are so quick. And I think that's what's going to get us to, like if crypto and AI were to be successful, I think it would be about feedback loops. That's one place we can win, compared to like, like centralized AI. So like, like just to give you an example, like what you were talking about, if today someone builds an AI agent network, and all this AI agent network does is a watchtower network. So like let's call them watch.agents or something. And every time any agent interacts, like agent to agent interaction, it has to pay like, like a 1% fee, or probably 0.1%, like whatever the fee is, for that network to like, be a watch, right, a security. I think that makes a ton of sense. Like someone should build it. Sort of some sense, we're trying to do that with a solver network and Repo, but not in the same manner. I think that is uniquely enabled by crypto. You're incentivizing a bunch of random people in the world to do something for money. I think that's what crypto does. And I think we just need to find more and more problems like that within the world of AI. And there's tons that crypto can solve, instead of like trying to like directly compete with, ChatGPT as like, their chat kind of like software. We can do that. I think we can try to do that. But really, I think from my experience working in this space for about 2 years, I don't think giving someone tokens to interact with your product is a sustainable strategy. I think it'll be there past AGE. Like, yeah, there'll be something else to farm. So
Cool.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Are there any final thoughts you have, Akshit, to close us out?
Yeah, I totally go with Raghav. Like he explained everything in so depth and so good manner, and
Mhm.
also all the examples that he gave. I really go and vibe with that. Would just like to add that maybe for the AGI, I would also like something who can go out and get me a girlfriend really fast. That's also one more thing. Right now, it takes a lot of time to go out and chat and do the texting and all this sort of things. It also takes a lot of time. So yeah, maybe EJ can also Raghav can also count that thing into his EJ example next time. I believe that's already a cheater, something like that. Some AI which you can use to text girls and like answer real time questions in interviews and all sort of things, or something like that. So yeah, I believe that things are reaching at quite some stage because even right now, I've seen a lot of videos coming on TikTok and Instagram there where you cannot differentiate whether it's AI video, AI generated video, or an actual video. They're just small things here and there that you have to look out for. And if that's also gone, then you won't be able to recognize. if the influencer or the video that you're watching is actual AI or is an actual person. So yeah, we are moving forward to that direction really fast enough, faster than we really thought. So yeah. And for crypto and AI, I believe Raghav gave the best example that it enables people to incentivize people to do things with tokens, and that's really beautiful example. Thanks, Raghav, for that one.
Yeah, that was really good. This is an amazing conversation, guys. I think this is a really good look into like where crypto and AI can actually, address things that, maybe people aren't working on or outside of the scope of what normally people think about when they think about AI. And so, yeah, I just want to thank you guys one more time for coming on. This is a really interesting conversation. I personally got to learn a lot, so I appreciate that. Where can the audience go to find you guys, find what you are working on?
Uh, Twitter is the best place. Ostwaliki over there, so you should find me.
Yeah, same for us. Reppo Network on Twitter, on X, and Reppo.xyz. We're launching some stuff soon, so yeah, look out for it.
I'll do also a plug in here since we're already in the vibe. We just launched the ApeCoin agent. We just officially launched FlowAI, so go check it out. It's floai.xyz. And by the way, I'm sure that Akshit and RG, we should talk after this also for potential partnerships, because we definitely need both Web3 intents and as well as DePIN underneath our model. So yeah, I think we can continue the
Sure,
conversation afterwards.
sure. Yeah, would love to.
Yeah, Karan, where can we find you? Since
I'm
you're all
also
of
on
it.
X. I'm not too active, just more just locked in right now. But yeah, find me on X. We'll put all the links in the description. Thank you guys once again. This is episode number 3 of the Agent State. We'll be back soon.